Hey everyone, happy 2025. First episode of the year, episode 36 with Lauren Watts-Mao from the ARA. She's been at the ARA for 7 years. This is the ARA episode. We got the ARA show next week. We got the future of equipment rental show as well as part of this. I hope you're listening to this before the show, but if not, we're talking about everything else the ARA is doing throughout the year as well, with the women in rental content, with the things you're working on the equipment theft side, and honoring some of the longstanding members. Some people have been in the industry and part of the ARA for over 60 years. So really great episode, really highlighting what the ARA does for this awesome industry we love, and a lot of sneak peek stuff to think about for the ARA show starting next week. Hope you enjoy. All right, everyone, welcome to the Rental Roundtable. Happy to have on Lauren Mao, a fellow Clemson grad. And crazy thing is, you're not the first Clemson alumni to come on the podcast. So welcome today, Lauren.
Thanks so much. Happy to be among a short list of Clemson grads here.
Yeah. We'll keep the Clemson football content for another podcast, but excited for this episode. A lot to talk about. In particular, the ARA show is next week in Las Vegas. So this episode is very timely because we're going to talk a lot about what the American Rental Association is doing, getting prepared for the ARA show coming up. So very timely with the show next week. I'm sure you're very busy getting ready for that. So thanks for coming on, making the time today.
Yeah, you bet. All the plans are a go. We've got all of our production plans in the staff's hands. I fly out on Monday, so we're excited.
I'll be there Tuesday for the future of rental and plugging that for anyone who hasn't registered yet. Obviously, the show is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but the future of rental is always really exciting to me. I think it's the second time they've done this event, right? The first year was 2 years ago, and then this is the second time. So very excited for that event in particular.
It's going to be awesome. We've kind of changed up the format. It's going to be more TED Talk style, so shorter, some more application-based speakers. So we're going to have an actual AI workshop where we're going through it as the speaker is talking up front. Tons of interaction. It's going to be a great day. I think it might actually be sold out. So if you haven't registered, go check. But unfortunately, the tickets might be sold out for that event because it is going to be great. And then Wednesday, we've got our normal education day for both sides of the industry. You know, we serve the event rental industry as well. And the speakers that day, it's a great lineup. There's 4 to choose from at every time slot. So yeah, it's going to be a busy week out in Vegas.
Yeah, well, I'll be outside scalping tickets with an I need ticket sign for double the price.
You get it.
I'm just kidding. I did register, so I've got a ticket. I'm excited to be there. And by the way, how many years out do you guys need to plan for the ARA? I imagine it's pretty. You guys are probably we're excited for this week, but you guys are probably many years out in the future, right?
Yeah, I think contractually with the certain venues. So the ARA show is so big, we can only fit in a couple of convention centers across the country. One is the McCormick Place in Chicago, but we kind of decided nobody wants to go to Chicago in February, so we don't put that in the rotation. So I think they start working on it. I mean, 5 years out, I think we have a pretty good idea. I don't know if it's confirmed or not, but the show team, they work round the clock, round the year on these shows. It's a ton of work for the 1 week that all the staff and attendees come together to put it on.
Yeah, I always tell people it's like the Super Bowl for the rental industry. It's always a highlight for me. And
totally,
we just show up and have a fun time. And I know there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes to make it all happen. So it'll be a fun event. So I want to, before we get into the ARA show a little bit further in, I want to talk about your background, sort of how you got here today, right? You've been at the ARA for 7 years. You're currently Senior Director of Communications, Content there. How did you get involved in the rental industry, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. So like you said, I've been at the ARA for 7 years. When I applied for the job, I applied as a marketing manager. I was already in the Quad Cities. That's where the ARA headquarters is. I had no idea what the rental industry was, and I really had no idea what ARA did. And I got the job and started working, and I still was trying to figure it out as I went. But it doesn't take long if you immerse yourself in the events that ARA does and the content that's out there. I mean, there's so much more now than there was when I started even, but it's just a growing, booming industry of really cool people. I think that's why I stayed. I mean, the people are just very down to earth. They're entrepreneurial, they're fun, and they're really smart. And they're looking ahead, and they're always innovating, like we were talking about last week. So it's an easy place to stay. I've been in a couple of different roles, which has been great too, to see different sides of what the association can do for our members. I'm definitely drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Well, 7 years at one spot for millennial. I think you're a millennial, right? Like, most millennials stay places for 2 years. So that tells me you like it. And you've also married into the rental family as well, right? So you have multiple connections now to the rental industry.
Yeah, that was not an intended consequence, but it's been the best thing ever. And yeah, now we have a baby, and everyone was like, well, is she born for this? And I said, I don't know, but she's for sure born into it. It has been great to really see the practices of everything that we talk about in the office, come to life in a shop, especially a single store location, because, there's been so much consolidation. And, there was a huge acquisition this week that United Rentals was working on. And it's like that is one side of the industry. And then the single store operator is another. And it's been cool to see my husband and then my father-in-law, who bought the business 24 years ago, I think. It's been really cool to see that generational collaboration and to see how they utilize the ARA services in their business too, because it can be done and it is helpful.
Yeah, your role in particular, you sort of see the wide view of all the rental companies, right? You see the single location and even smaller, the guys who aspire to have a brick and mortar location. They're running it out of a side yard, and then they grow to one location, then multi-location. Then you obviously covered some of the stuff with the United Rentals acquisition, right? Coming out last week or this week. What gives you the most energy? Do you like to work with interacting with the national players, or do you like the independent entrepreneurs? Like, where do you get the most energy from?
Yeah, I love it both. Days when we find out there's been an acquisition is like, it's so
crazy.
Fun. It is. It's crazy because in my role now, I oversee Rental Management Magazine, online and in print, social media, all the content that's coming out of the association. And so on an M&A day, it's like, okay, here we go. We got to get this out. And then you can just watch the messages and the Facebook groups that we have and everything. It brings everyone together in the conversations and the speculation. And any day that we get tons of engagement like that, it just so happens to be around big news like that. Those days are energizing. But the single store operators, both serve a purpose, right? And I think the future of the industry is going to be a lot of big guys and a lot of small guys. That middle is where things are, in my opinion, a little murky for the future, because if anyone that gets to a certain, size revenue, I think they start to become targets for M&A. So I think in the future, you're going to see a lot more independent operators that are smaller doing really cool things because they can be nimble. But then you go and you talk to the big five, and the amount of technology and innovation that they're doing is also interesting. It's just different. So I think there's obviously space for both. And I think it's fun to play in both sandboxes. It's fun to talk to both sides.
Yeah, I imagine whenever there's an acquisition, it is crazy, hair on fire. Like I looked at, ARA published like the top 10 articles from last year, and it was like, I don't remember, but I feel like 7 of the 10 were acquisition stories. Like that gets everyone's attention, even if you're a small guy who has no expectation to ever sell. Like that makes news. And I think that also creates some fear though, right? Because I think there's a worry that the nationals, they just buy everyone, and do we all just get crushed by the nationals? Like, do you think there is a room for the middle market? Like, do you think there is a room for a thriving 1 to 5 location group who's not really small, but not really big, and they can just have their little niche? Is that possible, or does that go away in the next 10 years?
In my opinion, there is. Those stores are in rural markets. And I think that that's where the potential for rental for a single store, or like you're saying, a couple locations, I think where they can thrive is in the rural places where people don't tread so much, right? I'm from a very small town in Illinois, and the closest rental store to us is like 45 minutes away. And people go because they have to. So I think these rural markets where real estate is cheaper, where they're starting niche power, like solar farms and that sort of thing, where they're starting to build these plants, and there's going to be a need for equipment out there. In my opinion, I think if you're going to have a 1 to 5 location shop, I think that's where you're going to find them in the future, is on the outskirts of civilization.
Yeah, there's a lot of rental companies out there. Yeah, and I think the way I think about it is like every time there's an acquisition, right? I think I talked to a banker who listens to our podcast. He's like, I think 7 of your guests have been acquired in the last 2. Like, for some reason, I guess if you come on this podcast, you're maybe a target. I think I'm not taking credit for that at all, but I think that shows you who we're talking to. And I do think like the middle market starts to get acquired. But my view is like that just creates opportunities for the next guy to move up, the smaller guy who is growing. And I've talked
Totally
to
agree.
3 owners in the last month or so that are going really long. They get offers every day to sell, and they're like, we're not going. We're going really long. This is what I'm doing for 20 years. And you got to be able to say no. That's sort of the superpower for an independent, is to be able to say no to the acquisition offers and continue to build your business. Because I think if you're patient and can kind of grind it out, I think there is a market for it. But you got to be willing to turn down money, and and that's not bad or good. It's just you got to decide that's what you want.
Totally. I mean, there's people that have sold and then they wait out. If they have a non-compete, they wait it out and they start again because they just love building rental businesses, right? Because they're good at it, which is awesome. And then there's people that want to keep their business because they love what they do. They love owning a business. They love contributing to the communities that they're in, providing jobs for those people. And they have a family, and maybe they want to carry on the legacy. I mean, rental is a pretty generational business, as I think we all kind of know. Even if you're not born into it, a lot of people, once they get in it, they're in it for life because they love it. So I'm totally with you.
Yeah, and I think, there's a lot of ways to make money in this world. I think that for a majority of people who get into rental, they love it. They love the equipment. They love serving people. They love helping people. And the 3 people I mentioned, that's what drives them. It's not a financial exit. It's like they actually love the work. They love building the company. They love helping their communities, giving back. So like when United or whoever does present a check to you, it doesn't matter because that's not why you're there to begin with. And I think the people who are really successful in this space, to me, seems like they have the passion, right? They give back to the industry. They help with ARA events. Maybe they help with, our podcast, whatever they do it for something bigger than the financial check. So I don't know. A lot of people, they're always like all the fear mongering articles and the conversations like, is there consolidation in the whole industry just becomes like 3 or 5 players? Like maybe, but I don't think so. Because I think there's just like superhuman entrepreneurs who love building rental companies in their communities, and it's hard to beat those people.
Amen. Brand loyalty is real. And if you're the one who's sponsoring the, Little League baseball team, and you're the one who's going to all these events in your community, people want to help you too. I mean, you have to run a good business also, but if there's a choice between you and somebody who's not as involved, you're going to win, in my opinion. So I'm with you.
And as an SEO hack, if you are helping your Little League community, donating to them, like getting backlinked on their website will help your local SEO.
That's right.
Told some people to do. It helps. So you've been at the ARA 7 years. When you started, the way I started 5 years ago, like I knew nothing about equipment rental and is still learning a lot every day. How do people learn about the industry? Like, how, especially, you're bringing new folks into your rental company or into the ARA, and how do you onboard folks? Like, what are some resources for people to think about wanting to learn more about the equipment rental industry?
Yeah, I think about this a lot because I think our members always say one of their biggest challenges is finding people and keeping them. And I think, rental stores or someone at the association, you have to become a student of what it is if you're not familiar. And I was not familiar, right? So, and at that time there wasn't as much content available to you as there is now. So like if I owned a rental company right now and somebody came to me and I was like, I want you to stay, I want you to be here for a career and we'll help you grow. The first thing I would do is make sure that they get Rental Pulse on Sunday. Shameless plug, but really that is where you're going to find out like what is going on in this industry. You're going to find out what people care about, what people read about, the vocabulary that's used in our industry, the equipment that's going on. You're going to find out who's acquiring who and why that's a big deal. I just think it's a great place to start to learn. Our online content, our news platform, our print magazine, all we do is try to help a business owner make more informed decisions, make sure they know what's on the forefront, but also we want to make sure that if you are hungry to learn more about this industry, we have content for you. And then I think the onus is on the business owner or HR, or whoever it is, to get them plugged in with training courses in Rental U. And I think the sooner you get someone to an ARA event, the more likely they are to stay with your company. Because I think then you realize that you are not just part of this brick and mortar store in your community. You're a part of this huge community that's across the country. And people are going through the same thing you are at work every day. And I think, like I said, you stay because of the people in this industry, and the sooner you can get people connected, I think the stickier it becomes for employment.
Yeah, for sure. I love the importance of community, because if you're in a rural part of America and you're the only rental company for 50 miles and it feels like you're on an island, but like there's thousands of rental companies experiencing the same thing that you are. And I think the ARA, coming to the ARA show every year, the events, that the state level events too. I think you didn't mention that directly, but like almost every state I feel like has events throughout the year. Which have been, I love the national event. That's like the fun supercharged event. But like you almost get more out of the state events because they're much more intimate and smaller. You get more one-on-one time as well.
Totally. I think we have 35 active state associations, and they do meetings the whole year. And they all have their own individual boards too. So like those boards are absolutely plugged in with really hyper local, I say, because as opposed to national, they have a pulse of what people in your state are wanting and what they're needing. So at those state events, you're going to get a bunch of trainings. They bring in speakers. Sometimes they do store tours. I mean, it's the gamut. And sometimes it is just a networking event to meet other people. But yeah, you're totally right. But in between all of the national Super Bowls, if you can get people there, I think you're going to have a great success of keeping people if they realize that these are the kind of people they want to hang with, which I think you should. I think they're pretty cool.
For sure. And I think also like becoming an ARA member, obviously, as part of this, is there like a limit to how, let me put it differently. I'm a small guy. I'm thinking of starting a rental business. Maybe got a couple pieces of equipment. Is that too early to join the ARA? Or what point should I think about becoming an ARA member?
No, I think that's exactly when you should. And I think that's exactly when you should download the old Facebook app and get in our groups. There's certain criteria for becoming a member, but we do try to make it really accessible for people who are trying to start their business off on the right foot, with all the right tools that they need. So I think that's exactly when you give us a call and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Our membership team is great. We've got people on staff who've done it and who have ran their own rental businesses. So even if you're not quite there yet, there's people that can help you along the way. And as you know, the people in this industry are not afraid to share their tips and tricks. So even if you don't qualify for membership right away, you're going to be connected with the people that can help you grow to the point where you can.
Yeah. And for the newer rental companies, right? Like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So join the ARA. Get connected with ARA Insurance, get connected with, James Wade International for your rental contract, join the ARA Facebook group, join the rental group, Facebook group, maybe reach out if you're, depending on the size you are, the Dan Crowley, peer executive groups. Like, I think you have to differentiate around that 10% or 20% that makes you unique. But like a lot of the core stuff has been a well-trod path. And we talked to companies all over the place who have they do all those steps, and other ones who've kind of figured it out on their own. And generally speaking, like if you can shortcut what other people have learned and kind of go through, the ARA, I think it makes it a lot easier for everyone.
Yes. Smarter, not harder. I mean, the stuff that's going to differentiate you is not what the verbiage is in your damage waiver contract. Like just use what we've got, use our partners like James Wade to do those things, because it's going to save you. And it's written the way that it is because he knows what he's doing, and thousands of rental stores have benefited from that. So take that, run, and then go figure out what makes you different and put that on your website.
Yeah, that's right. So I want to talk about the ARA show coming up, obviously next week. What's special about this show in particular? What's different? What's sort of the story or the theme for this show that's different from previous ARA shows, which obviously are every year?
Yeah. So our theme this year is discover. So the goal is let's find something new, let's find something different, take something away from the show in all these different buckets. But you'll see that word in a lot of places next week. This year, we're using the Diamond Lot out at the Las Vegas Convention Center. So if you've been to a Con Expo or a World of Concrete, I think they use that lot a lot. But we're going to use it this year too. So we're going to have exhibits outside. We're going to have a stage where exhibitors can showcase their equipment. So that'll be a really cool thing. We're doing our traditional Tuesday night event. Remember, all the days are different this year. So our Thursday night event this year is going to be out in the Diamond Lot, vintage Vegas theme. It's accessible for all full registrants, so you can come enjoy. That'll be a cool thing this year. We have got equipment town halls and event town halls back. I think it's been a couple years since we've done those, but those are some of the most valuable hours that I think people can have. It's a group of professionals on both sides of the industry just sharing their knowledge and talking amongst themselves. It's moderated. They'll be really great. I think those are outside as well. Yeah, we've got the show floor split differently. So usually it was event and then general tool and construction, heavy construction. And so we've just split it equipment and event this year. So everything is kind of intertwined a little bit more. I think it's going to be a great show. We've really taken all the feedback from members, and the show team works hard to make sure that it's a great experience for everyone, and the rest of the staff just helps facilitate it. So we're excited. I think it'll be a fun week.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to see the heavy equipment and general tool be consolidated, because I feel like a lot of groups like ourselves that were like, well, which one are we? And then right. And it's just easier to say we're equipment. We're not event, we're equipment. And I think that's probably good for everyone to simplify things.
Yeah.
Also excited for, I think David Wallace is speaking. Is that right? Is he one of the speakers?
Yes.
I think I saw that.
Yes. He
From
is.
The Office?
Yeah, he's going to be at the Young Professional event. They're going to do, I think it's called Cocktails and Connections. And he's going to kind of help facilitate a really good just mixer for young professionals. It's a little more structured this year, but I think it'll be a really cool thing. Our keynote is the CBS reporter correspondent. I'm not exactly sure the best word for it, but David Pogue, and I think he'll be great. And then the show floor opens right after him, and it's 2.5 days of a mad dash. So get your shoes out, break them in this week, because you're gonna want them broken in. Don't get blisters.
A lot of walking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously more than you can attend. There's, which is the fun part. You have to sort of, it's like going to like Disney World, and you're like, well, you can't do every ride, so pick what you want to do. Like, what are you most personally excited for about this show this year?
Oh, it's hard. I think the future of equipment rental is going to be really cool. I think the event is different than how we've done it, what was that, 2 years ago? I'm excited to see what the members think of the format, because it is different. I think that they'll enjoy it. It's a little more quick hitting. So I'm hopeful that we can kind of incorporate that into our events moving forward if they like it. The keynote's going to be super cool. I think people will come out and attend that. You'll get a lot of good advice from it. The keynote for the future of equipment rental is going to be great too. She's a powerhouse. Sure.
Yeah. I've been thinking more about technology, the future. So I actually think, I'm obviously, I like technology. That's sort of what I like to do. I actually think if you like go too far, it actually can be really bad. Like, if the goal is to just have shiny technology for the purpose of having shiny technology, I think that's actually takes you in the wrong direction.
Agree.
But can you do it to serve your outcome, which is deliver a better customer experience for the rental company, or to be more efficient so you can spend more time on the business, not in the business, right? And stop doing repetitive tasks. Like, I think technology for those purposes are noble. But, when I hear futurist, I think the part of me goes a little scared of like, the goal is not to move, for me, the goal is not to move towards an AI singularity for the purpose of doing that, but like, can it actually serve our current, business needs and needs as a community? So I'm interested for this. I never get the sense in the rental industry, though, that people are on that side of things. Like some of my other friends who purely work in AI, that's all they want. They want AI to take over, and that's like their thesis of life. And I don't subscribe to that. I don't think the rental industry subscribes to that. I think they've generally been like under adopting technology as an industry, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's why bringing someone in like April Rooney is good, because she's going to be all the way over here, right? Here's all the things you can do. She is an expert on like the circular economy. She's going to be awesome. But if you can even glean a couple bits of her advice and her experience, and you're over here and we can get you here, then I think you're going to be in a great space. I think our industry specifically, construction and rental, is typically behind in technology adoption. But I think that there's a hunger for it now. And I think there's a realization of we can do both. We just need to figure out how to do it, right? In the rental industry and how it can be applied, I don't think the goal is to become a completely humanless, idea. It's to help integrate, be safer, be more efficient. I mean, our whole industry is built on data. If you want it to be. So how can we use this technology to help you understand the data and use the data to predict, to make you better in the future? Yeah,
for sure. And I think I've never heard anyone in the rental industry say, I want to build a rental company with 0 people and it's all robots, and I want to get rid of the American job. Like, I've never heard that. I have heard that from other people in an outer space technology place that I don't live in, it'd be interesting to see like, a futurist. What does that mean? I think it'll generally be grounded though. Like, how do we take where we are today as an industry and where is possible in the future and marry those together? Because it's got to be something that's pragmatic, that makes sense for the business, makes sense for the industry. And I think that those two things, that's the work, right? How do you take where we are today and where we can be and kind of combine that into incremental progress?
Yes. And that was the whole thing when we called it the future of equipment rental. We were like, okay, what future do we want to get to? And that's where we really talked with our membership, our shared interest groups and our board. And we're like, do we want to talk about the future 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, or next year? Because there's people in the audience who will appreciate all those conversations. But I think our job is to help people, our job is to advance the industry. And so if we're going to help you advance now, I think we need to look at the future 1 year from now and 5 years from now, realistically, to help you make the most informed business decisions.
And I've talked to people who they've asked me like, hey, should I attend the future of rental event? And I'm like, I think it's going to be exciting. It makes sense for me personally. I think if you're a rental business owner and you're a smaller group, you go, okay, I'm going to spend X dollars on the ticket and travel and hotel. And is there, outside of it being entertaining, which it is there an ROI to my business? I think if you talk about 20 years from now, maybe not as much. But if you're like, hey, here's where you need to be in a year and 5 years, and here's some immediate steps, I think it's absolutely worth it, right? Because it's pragmatic and it's not so esoteric of like, let's just talk about, this future where, we live on Mars or whatever. But like, no, this is actually things you should be doing today to make your business more profitable.
Yeah. And that's why we included some of those workshops and things, because we want people to know like, this is actionable, this is helpful, this isn't, as you were alluding to, 20 years into the future where we're 3D printing hamburgers or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to answer my own question for this, I'm definitely most excited for the future of rental on Tuesday, although the ARA show is awesome. It's very, it'll be a long week. It'll be very fun. So can't wait for that. I guess final question on that. For somebody who's never been to the ARA show, where do I start? How do I even know where to go? How do I keep things focused? Because it could be overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's overwhelming. I think it's overwhelming even if it's not your first show, right? Because then you know a bunch of people and you want to go see everything. So I think the first thing you should do if you've never been to the show is download the ARA Show app onto your phone. The app has all the information you're going to need. It's got an interactive map of the show floor. It can help you map out how to get most efficiently to save your steps from vendor to vendor. On the show floor, it'll help you build a schedule out. All of the education sessions are in there. So it'll really help you build out your week and kind of prioritize and focus what you want to do. And I think that you should realistically put together like 2 or 3 goals for the week. Especially like you were talking about for these small businesses that are literally taking time out of their work schedules to come here. And most places in February, well, I guess it's January now, they're a little slower, but their doors are open. So for you to make it worth it, you should write down, what are the top 3 things you want to accomplish in the week. And I think the best thing you can do is try to meet 2 or 3 members that you can stay connected with throughout the year. I think you need to go see the ARA booth on the show floor because you are paying for this membership all year long, and coming to the show is a huge benefit, but there's so many other things that ARA can help you with. And if you just find 1 or 2 other benefits, then I think you will see your membership. You'll get more out of your membership and see it in action in your business. So that's my best advice. And bring it a water bottle and hydrate. Hydrate. It's a lot of walking.
It's always crazy. You realize how big the industry is at these shows when you walk from one end to the other and it takes 20 minutes. And it's like 2 miles long indoors. Yes. I like the idea of having goals and focus. And if you have the time, like if you can walk and visit every booth, you don't need to talk to everyone, but like see what's out there, because you may find out there's things solving business problems that you didn't know there were solutions to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and if you're new, go to the town halls. I guess that would be my last plug. If you're in the event rental industry or equipment rental, there's one for each. Find those on your schedule and make sure you attend, because you're going to see people that are facing the same problems as you up on a stage talking about them.
For sure. So that's the ARA show next week. That's sort of like the big thing for the year. But obviously the ARA is doing things throughout the year.
Yeah.
What are some other initiatives that the ARA is working on? I know we've talked about more, bringing more women in rental content out there, equipment theft, honoring long-standing members who've been in the industry for decades. Like, what are some other things outside of the ARA show that the ARA
Yeah.
is really focused on for 2025?
I think the biggest focus would be our equipment theft initiatives. At the show, you'll see we're launching a really comprehensive program to help you keep your stuff from getting stolen. And it will educate you on what to do if your equipment is stolen. So there's going to be training courses. We've partnered with a couple of our associate members to really make sure that if you buy into this program and you are taking all the steps necessary, your risk for theft will be reduced. One of our partners is the National Equipment Register. So make sure you get your equipment registered so that if something is taken, there's, you put all this information in, it doesn't take very long, and NER is on it when that time comes. Hopefully it doesn't come, but if you own a mini skid, somebody's trying to steal it. So that's just the reality, unfortunately, of the world right now. So I think that's our biggest initiative for 2025. As far as content goes, we are doing a Women in Rental series this year, which I'm really excited about. We kicked it off in January with Caitlin Goff. She's a light of a person. She's in Kentucky. She's the first female president of the ARA of Kentucky. She's in the event rental world, but we've got a really strong lineup. Every month, a new woman will be featured and just kind of talk about their story, how they got into rental. It's a really cool series. And then we're also honoring our longest consecutively running members. So some of these members are founding members, or they've been members for more than 60 years consecutively. Tony, our CEO, and Jeff Rogan, our VP of membership, and a couple other, key players at ARA have basically gone on this road show to learn more about who these people are, where their business stands now. We've got awesome video content from like the 70s from a couple of them that we're going to put together. It's going to be a really cool series. That's going to be in our magazine, our print magazine, and online. So that's going to be a really cool series that we're excited to launch too. Yeah, just the history in the industry and how much things have changed and how much things haven't changed. I love it. I think it's great.
Wow. So you guys have 60-year members, people who have been, are they still alive,
Yeah.
or is the rental company is 60 years, or the actual individual?
Some both. One interview I was just looking at the other day, the man who started the business has passed away, but his wife is still here. And so we were able to talk to her. Robert Pedersen, the incoming president for ARA, I think they're in their 4th generation of business there. There's just some really rich history in the industry that, I'm a sucker for intergenerational communication in that world. That's kind of what I studied in college a little bit. There's so much you can glean from the generations past, but it's just interesting to see how the innovation of the industry has evolved, how the equipment's evolved, but, they're still solving the same problems of how to make sure they are getting the best ROI on their equipment and how to keep it from getting stolen. So
Yeah, it does seem like this industry in particular, it is very like a generational business where you pass it down much more. Like I have one friend who he's a 3rd generation software business. I'm like, how are you already, like, I didn't know software was like,
right.
How did that happen?
Impressive.
Like, when did you start software, in the 60s or 70s? I guess so. But like, so technology stuff is not something like, I'm not going to pass Quipli down to my kid. That's just not the type of business we have. But like rental is that. And people talk about it gets in your blood. It seems like it really does. It's like, it's very family oriented. It's something that you can build, and it can be something you run for 75, 100 years, and you kind of pass it through the generations.
Yeah. I mean, it just feels so rooted, right? Because what do you use rental equipment to do? You're building houses, you're building communities. Like, it's just kind of this very innate thing, I think, that it is grounded in those principles. And I shouldn't say it's an easy thing to pass down, because it's not. But right, exactly. People are always going to be building. People need places to go, and yeah.
And the rental industry is growing, right? I think I started 2020.
Yes.
I'm making the numbers up, but it was like 60 billion rental revenue. I think it's getting closer to 80 billion now. Because obviously construction is growing, but also rental penetration, it's still not where it is in Europe and other markets. So like, if it goes up by 1% on top of just general business underlying economic growth, like, this industry still has a lot of tailwinds too. It doesn't seem like it's stalled out by any means.
No, no. It's interesting. We do a quarterly member survey, and we include those results in our Rentalytics calls. So that's another program through ARA that does a lot of economic forecasting, and it all shows growth. It might be slower growth, but it's still growing, right? So certain areas of the country, more growth than others. But I guess I would say with the slowed growth, even though, again, it's growing and it's all positive, with it being slowed, I think people are starting to realize they need to do more in the other areas of their business, right? Since 2020, it was just a mad dash to, one, get equipment, keep equipment, get it out the door. And now we see this increased supply. So now we have to differentiate ourselves again from our competitors because it's just getting a little tighter. So I think that's where now, more than you ever had in the last 5 years, marketing and communication and sales are, I think, one of the things that can help you capitalize on the growth.
Well, I want to talk about marketing because obviously you also have a marketing background, something you're very strong in, and obviously the rental experience here. Like, what are like the basic things that rental companies should be thinking about if they do want to grow their business, particularly using marketing, maybe some sales as well? Like, what are the 101 for marketing for rental companies? How should they be thinking about that?
Yeah, in my opinion, this is pretty fundamental, but you have to have a website that works and that looks good on every single device that you think someone's going to search you on. Rental is different than other industries. Like, people aren't coming to you to browse. Like, they know they need something, right? They know they need it. So they have to decide how, when, and who. So if your website can function, they're going to go to it before they walk in your door, odds are. So a website that works, and then I would start with Google AdWords to grow your business. With AI, that's starting to get more interesting, but there's tons of tools out there to help you with Google Ads. But I think anyone that's searching, what are they going to type in the search bar? I need a skid steer near me, that sort of thing. Mini X near me. If you can be at the top of that, then I think it's going to be great. I think another thing that rental stores are hesitant to do is to put pricing on their website. I think I'm more in the camp of to be transparent because it's just going to help improve the customer experience once you get them that far. So to me, website, Google AdWords, and then I'm a content junkie, so I would start putting videos together, to be completely honest, of your equipment, how it works, how to troubleshoot it. Because even if you're not putting that out to the general public, which I think you absolutely should, I think that if you've got a new renter that's not sure of X, Y, and Z, if you can say, here's your rental contract, I'm going to shoot you an email or I'm going to send you a text of these 3 videos on our YouTube channel. So if you run into X, Y, and Z problem, check these out first, because what percentage of field calls could you reduce if you could just show somebody like, this is how you do this is how you do this. And I would start putting together those videos. YouTube, I think, is the future of all content consumption. So I would start there.
Video, people like videos, and I couldn't agree more. And I think we've talked to several rental groups who have that, some people filmed it with their iPhone and it's like sort of authentic, but we've had people like get professionally done videos of like, here's how you service these pieces of equipment. If it's not working, check these 3 things. Put it on your website, put it on YouTube, because then you start to become a thought leader. And I could go to United, right? But this guy's in my backyard and he seems to know what he's doing, and I just like him, right? And it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially in the rental industry. People love the equipment, and what they don't love is like self-promotion, which is what it feels like. But if you don't view it like self-promotion, you view it as like, hey, we're going to help people solve problems they have. That's what good content is. I couldn't agree more. Those videos, and you don't need to go get a big budget. Even just having your iPhone. Everyone's got an iPhone now to record it, put it online. You can even put it on your product pages. So every piece of equipment you have on your website, put a video that explains how to use it, how to fix it. All that adds up and matters. And on the website stuff, we see 60% of all website traffic, at least for our customers, are on mobile devices, right? So it's not just desktop, but like majority of website visits are being done on your device, right? And I think that's something that's maybe not intuitive, to think that like when people go to your website, more often than not, they're on their phone, right?
Right.
So you got to think about it from that perspective too.
Yeah. I think if you can do those 3 things, you're going to be light years ahead of most independent rental companies, in my opinion.
Do you think there's been a change in the last few years on the pricing side? Because I feel like that was like a non-starter 5 years. People like, no, pricing never. And I feel like it's totally switched, where I think majority of people have pricing now.
Well, I think the pricing goes hand in hand with like the whole completely, how do we make rental e-commerce and getting the whole order through online, because I know that that is something that is starting to become more prevalent. I know the capability didn't even exist though either, right? So now that the capability is there, I think people are seeing that millennials-ish, definitely people younger than millennials, like we're used to ordering everything online. We don't really want to talk to somebody unless we absolutely have to, and then we will. But if I'm on a job site, I know that I'm going to need X, Y, and Z in the next week, and I can go on your website and make that whole transaction happen without talking to you, and it's fast, I'm going to do it if I can. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the pricing conversation of making it available to people. I think some people were afraid of like, is my competitor going to undercut me by X% if my price is out there?
Yeah.
But I just don't think that. I think if that's your one differentiator, then you got other things to work on.
For sure. If you're going to be the low cost leader, you've sort of already lost. If you have a great product, a great service, you should stand by your price. This is what it costs to fund this business. If you want something cheaper, it's going to break down. Go to that guy. And I think what you also find is the customers who are like the most price sensitive are probably not your best customers, anyways, right?
Sure.
They
right.
may
And
be late on payment. They may be more likely to damage equipment that you don't really see.
And if you're working with a contractor and you're like, this is a long-term relationship, odds are they're not going to be going to your website to do that. They're coming in and they're coming out so much that they're not the people that a lot of times the online transaction is for. It can be, but a lot of times, those long-standing customers, they're just interacting with you differently anyway.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Well, Lauren, it's been awesome having you on here today. I'm excited to see you next week in Las Vegas. Maybe final question, put you on the spot here. If you had to say in one word, future of rental is what? One word. The future of rental is blank. Potential. I like it.
I think there's a ton of it. I think if you can be creative and innovative, sky's the limit.
I think we're just scratching the surface, and it seems like more than ever there's a willingness to try new things and lean in. And maybe because of, it's a little bit more competitive than it was 3 years ago, right? You could just rent anything. I think people have to be creative, and I think what necessity is the mother of invention sort of thing, where, I think a little bit more competition may drive more innovation, and maybe we're just scratching the surface of potential.
Yeah, and so many different specialty divisions of rental are coming out. I mean, I don't know why independent rental companies couldn't lean into that too. There's so much.
Cool. Thanks for joining, Lauren.
Yeah, take care. See you in Vegas.
Yeah.